Okay, welcome to this session. Let's introduce Nicola Nye first. Nicola has worked in the tech since the computer had floppy drives. Nicola is a leadership coach with Blackmill, helping teams and the leaders become high performers. And today, Nicola's topic is everything open is HopePunk.
Thank you,
Now, welcome, Nicola.
Hope you're not falling asleep after having a massive lunch like I did. I would like to acknowledge the Kaurna people of the Adelaide Plains for having us and welcoming us here. It makes me think about the gifts that they have been so generous to share with us. Given, in the past, part of the reason that Australia was colonised was because the folks that came over on the boat said, no, there's nobody here in Australia worth noticing. They're all savages. And part of the reason for this is because the Aboriginal people didn't really have a written language system in the way that the British folks recognised. But that's because they communicated knowledge through stories. And I think that's got a really great connection to HopePunk today, because HopePunk has its origins in stories. But HopePunk draws its strength also from community and culture and relationships. And it turns out, as we heard this morning, this is something that our First Nations people have known for a really long time. And so I like to think that through understanding them and the gift that they have given to us, I'm hoping that it helps us all become a little bit wiser. So, a quick word about me. I have been in tech a long time. You'll often find me in a lot of the Australian Melbourne startup scene. These days I work in leadership, and that has brought me in some ways into HopePunk. I sort of sat there and said, it's taken me a while to go from learning about HopePunk to sort of really understanding it, to really internalising it and having it sort of sink into me. Or maybe it's actually been the other way around, and it's been a slow process for me to peel away all the layers, unmasking in an autistic sense in some respect, to own who I am and what HopePunk means to me. So first of all, what even is HopePunk? So how many of you are already converts? How many have heard of HopePunk? Yes, fantastic. You are my people. So I'm pleased that you're here. Let's share the joy. Now, HopePunk has actually been around for a while. It started when Alexandra Rowland, an author, posted up and said, psst, the opposite of grimdark is HopePunk. Pass it on. And it became so notable that actually in 2019, the Collins Dictionary added it as a new and notable term. But this only makes sense if you know what grimdark is. So grimdark is all about authoritarian, right-wing dystopia, where the most you can hope for is to maybe survive if you make the least worst decision. There's no winners, there's no heroes, there's just people who are less awful than other people, and optimistically you are hoping to not end up at the bottom of the pile. So if you've ever read one of the Elric series, or a great chunk of Game of Thrones, the Walking Dead series is an example of grimdark. And in fact, most sort of zombie and vampire horror genre fits into a lot of grimdark. So by contrast, HopePunk is about joy and compassion and people coming together in a community to build a better world against the forces of darkness that are arrayed against you. The punk aspect in HopePunk says that success isn't guaranteed, but it's worth trying. So let's have a look at HopePunk. What does that mean? So if we look at hope, I mean, we all use that word in everyday conversation. I hope it'll be a sunny day today. Or if you're like me right now, I hope that maybe the temperature will come down. I hope my sports team wins. I hope that this year will be better than 2020. Now, Susan K. Quinn, who's a big HopePunk aficionado, she's got a podcast called Bright Green Futures, and she summarised some academic research that someone put in as to what even is hope How do we define it? How do we pull it together? And it's posited that there were 4 kinds of hope. There is deceptive hope. I hope that you'll all come up to me after the talk and give me some chocolate. Yes, deceptive. There's sort of objective hope. We might call it optimism. Well, you're probably not going to all give me chocolate, but I hope I will be able to buy myself some chocolate. There is sustaining hope. This is the thing that keeps you alive when you can't see what the good outcome could be, but you refuse to give in. Well, hopefully nobody will steal my chocolate. And then there's catalytic hope. This is the thing that brings people into action. I would like chocolate. You don't have any chocolate. You would like some chocolate. Hey, I know where there's a chocolate cafe. Why don't we all go and get some chocolate? Some of you can't come. All right, we'll get you some chocolate and we'll bring it back and then we can all share the chocolate and then everybody gets chocolate. And suddenly I've got half the room with me heading down to Hague's at the mall. So the hope in HopePunk, while it has space for most of these kinds of terms, ideally not the first one, the punk aspect is trying to get you into that catalytic space. So what about punk? I mean, I have to confess I'm not a punk rocker. That is not my genre of music. But it turns out I've got a lot of the punk attitude going on. They're all about, the culture's all about rage. It's about challenging authority, standing apart from the norm, power in community of like minds, because their subculture is just so strong. And when I look around here and I hear the laughs around the room about Vivian's quote, which I have been known to mutter in an angry aside to my husband when my kids are being frustrating, you are part of my subculture. I know that should I turn up with pink hair, I will see other people with pink hair. I know that we stand apart from the norms. This is part of the core of geek culture, to embrace the weird little things that everybody else is like, I don't know why you're into that, I'm going to go and talk sports ball. If you want to talk about Kubernetes or printing something that's smaller than the size of a human hair, go to it. So we are geeks and we've got our own subculture, and I think there's some overlaps there. So when we join all of these words together, we get HopePunk. So HopePunk is about finding the weird little things that make your heart happy, and finding the community of people who also have a weird little happy heart. And the act of just even having that kindness, sharing that compassion, is an act of rebellion when corporations and governments and just rising cost of living, like it's grinding all of us down, and it makes it hard to lift up your head and sit there and say, I'm looking forward to something. So even being able to share that and be part of that, love you in the head nod, I'm right with you, like that's an act of rebellion in today's society, to not just bow down to it. Now I mentioned earlier, it came up that I was I'm now sort of doing stuff with leaders and have been a leader in the past and continue to be. And this is part of how HopePunk came into me. Turns out living with depression for many years makes you think about, why am I here? What are my values? In my case, what do I want to pass on to my kids? And this is something that Mike O'Brien this morning was talking about with taking what you need and leaving something for who else is coming after. So this is, what do I want to have the legacy of my children? What do I pass on to them? As a leader, what are my values? What do I stand for? What do I want my team to get from me? I want to be an inspiring leader. I want to go around and say to people, this is why we're making it, this is what we're doing, let's get in it together. And for people to not turn around and go, yeah, whatever, but to go, yeah, I'm with you, that's really good. I'm looking forward to coming to work today. And so I sort of sat there and thought about my values. And it turns out that a lot of what's up on the screen, they're my values. I had a few other bits in there like whimsy and catacorns and glitter and googly eyes. So this was part of it. It was I had been so serious for so long, I suddenly went, you know what, HopePunk, I'm going to let my weird little heart shine And I will find my community of like-minded people, and I will encourage them to also be their more authentic self. Authenticity. All right, that's a lot of talk about what even is HopePunk, and we've looked at contrasting, and I've told you a bit about my story. How can you recognise it in the real world? Other than, looking at this shirt that's got "Be Kind" on it, and my earrings that I've specially 3D printed to say HopePunk. I don't know if you've read the book or gone and seen the musical. Matilda, she's this high, and she manages to overthrow the bully headmistress who is torturing all these children. She develops psychic powers to help her do that, which I have not yet managed to do. But she sits there and calls out injustice and does something about it. This guy during lockdowns, totally anonymous, not doing it for the press or the publicity. He just sat there and went, we're allowed to go out for a run. Everybody's miserable. I'm going to do it in my Spider-Man suit. I have it on good authority that it is quite hard to breathe when you are inside a Spider-Man suit, much less doing it with a mask, while you're also running. But he had people coming up to him in the park, kids and adults alike, going, I have seen you on multiple occasions, just wanted to say thank you. Sparking the joy. Art is often about sparking joy, it's often about helping people think. Banksy is there to sit there and resist the systemic forces that are taking place, and he is doing it in a way that it's spreading like a mind virus. People share his artwork because it speaks to something inside of us. This is at the Black Lives Matter protest at the front of the Baton Rouge police headquarters. This photo gives me goosebumps. This lady was interviewed, or her friend talked about her when she was caught in this pose. What are you doing? Why were you thinking about doing this? She looks so calm and so sure of herself while these, heavily armed people are trying to get her moving. And she said that this lady's got a 5-year-old son. And the reason that she went is not because she's an activist. She hasn't been to protests before. She went because she wanted to be able to look her son in the eyes and say that she fought for his freedom and his rights. She's not going in there for any other reason other than to sit there and say, I'm not sure that my protest will change anything, but I need to go there because I care about what's going to happen next. If you know me, I'm into Wonder Woman. I've even got a Wonder Woman backpack. This iconic scene is, they're heading off to fight their big bad, and on the way she takes a little side trip on her own into no man's land, despite the advice of her friends and colleagues. She's like, it might be a side quest, but I can't stand by while innocent lives are lost. I will fight for those who cannot fight for themselves. And in doing so, in going over the ledge and everybody's looking at one another and going, she inspires them to follow her, and they're good guys, they save the day. This is Captain Marvel from 2019 movie, and I'm just going to play a short clip for you because she's got this real HopePunk thing going on with her.
Without us, you're only human.
You're right. I'm only human.
That still gives me goosebumps when the music comes up. So she is embodying that spirit of punk, that grit. She's been knocked down 7 times, but she gets up 8 times, which speaks to this quote about what hope really can look like. And I do feel like she's got dirt on her face and blood on her knuckles and coming out of her nose and grit everywhere, and she's going to get up and have a go at this evil AI that's trying to crush the universe. The evil AI is throwing the worst insult it can think of at her. You are weak. You're only human. And she thinks about what it means to be human. And in part, I reckon, because the AI is saying, you're no good, she's got a bit of that punk spirit, and she's like, well, because you've told me I can't, I am going to get up there and I am definitely going to do it, just like my teenager. Okay, so now hopefully you know a little bit about HopePunk, what it might look like, but what's that got to do with open source? And indeed, my title was about how everything open is HopePunk. And while I did mean it in the specific proper noun sense, it also applies in the common noun sense. All of the open things embody the principles of HopePunk. Why do I say that? Well, on the left-hand side, you have open philosophy and HopePunk principles, and on the right-hand side, you've got everybody else. The open source movement came about originally because they said, do you know what? I want to be able to fix my own computer and my own software. And I don't want to be beholden to some sort of corporation. I don't want to be coerced and controlled. I want agency. Are you holding that up? Oh, thank God. She held up the 5-minute sign and I was like, ooh. So, you know, all of these principles about telling the man off and going for agency independence, that's really punk stuff. We are an open community, knowledge sharing, participate as you can, give back for the next generation. This is in direct opposition to the forces of capitalism, as Justin's talk was about this morning. And you're going to hear some overlap here, but we are looking at different angles of what it takes to be a sustainable community. Now, none of this stuff is new to us. We've been in open source for quite a while. We know what's going on. So let's have a look at it from the lens of HopePunk. So you've got social media by the people, for the people, connected together freely, nobody can take control of it. And on the other side, you've got things like funny little apps on your phone that can tune your face and make you look like a cat or your partner or your husband's dog. And they're actually harvesting your facial image for use in training AIs or facial recognition, scraping it off our social media. So we're about the opposite of walled gardens. That's very HopePunk. We like space. Generally, I would say 90% of people in this room are like, space is cool. You can build your own space radio telescope. There are many instructions on the internet that will tell you how to do it. Conversely, we also live in a world where BMW tried to convince you that you should pay a monthly subscription so that you can use the seat warmers that are already in your car. Your car needs to talk to the internet to decide if you've paid your bills so you can operate your car. Seat warmers, they back down on that pretty quick, but it goes to show you the real difference in thinking. HopePunk is all about dreaming of a better world. Science fiction is often about looking into the future, about what could be, and that's why Star Trek brought about automatic doors that go whoosh. I lost hours of my life to the Precious Plastic website. This is a global movement designed to let people build their own plastic recycling ecosystem. So there's knowledge there about how to build your own plastic recycling machinery, how to go about recycling it, how to build your own mould so that you can produce product, how to sell those products, where to get plastic from. They've not only open sourced the hardware and the software, they've also open sourced the knowledge, and they emphatically declare that it should be free for everybody. When the megacorps can't figure out how to recycle all our kinds of plastics, we've got it going on a local level. Corporate, on the other hand, Roomba is selling well, it's actually giving it now that Amazon's bought them out there, giving Amazon your floor plan so that Amazon can sell things to you. So we're talking about a real anti-consumerist punk sentiment. We want to tell the man to back off. We want a better world. One where we can fix our own stuff, reuse our own stuff, recycle our own stuff, make the stuff do things that maybe the original creators never intended it to do, but it's still cool and fun anyway because we've bought that thing and it should belong to us. Or we've made that thing and we should be able to do what we want to do with it. Okay, so now that we know that sort of the open community are aligned with sort of HopePunk principles, great, I'm feeling joy, but how does that help us? So I'm going to talk about some of the sustainability challenges that we're facing today. And while I was indeed inspired by Justin and a little bit concerned that he had taken all of the content from my talk and done it better, because I too believe that we're at a turning point. And while Justin's talk was all about the sort of the systemic forces that are coming to bear against the open communities and how we might be able to moderate that to produce a more equitable ecosystem, I'm going to be looking at sustainability challenges that are internal to our ecosystem. So why do I say that we're at a bit of a turning point? Well, open hardware is at its infancy, but the rise of smart homes and smart devices is, I think, going to generate a real upswing in demand and skill sets. So I think open hardware is on the rise. GLAM funding I'm seeing across the board is getting cut. This is impacting arts, it's impacting libraries, it's impacting museums, and it's getting to the point where it's impacting even Wikipedia, because between AI slop and billionaires who have a vested interest in controlling what information is out there, I think it's coming under threat. And then you've got open source, potentially the biggest component, for people in this room anyway, about the open ecosystem. The movement is about 50 years old. The Free Software Foundation came into being about 50 years old. It sort of built mainstream legs in '91 when Linux was released open source. And so that's kind of, I'm thinking that open source as a sort of a mainstream movement is about 30 years old. Do you know what else we say is 30 years old? A generation. Do you know what happens after people have been doing something for a generation? They start thinking about doing something else. And part of the ecosystem is obviously all the legal shenanigans that's going on, whether it's data privacy or liability concerns. There's a lot of other things that are forces that are happening within the world and within the people that are applying pressure to the open ecology in a way that we haven't really seen before now, just because of timing and circumstance. Now, it's not to say it's all doom and gloom. The open community has got heaps of strengths, but it's also got issues, and some of them are inherent to how this kind of community runs. You're all volunteers. Who gets to decide who's going to drive the bus? If you have small children, don't let the pigeon drive the bus. But we've got ways of figuring that out. And some of the challenges are due to the forces on where we are today, and that's kind of what I'm going to be looking at a little bit. Now, I have to pay royalties for every time I say your name. Justin said systems are better than individuals. Better. They're not better. I mean, that's not what he said. And so he was looking at the system picture. I'm looking at the individual picture, because systems are built by people. People are the ones building and running the computers. They're the ones making the decisions. And so if we want to change what our systems are doing, we also need to look at what the individuals in those systems are getting up to. We, in the open community, we set our own projects, our standards, our processes, our practices. There's no formal hierarchy other than what we choose to do, unlike when you go and take a job with your employer, where a lot of that is externally imposed. So if you don't like what someone's doing with their project, you can fork it and go somewhere else. Or, not, and then you end up with your lawyers versus their lawyers. So I kind of sit there and I said, do when I think about problems that the open community has got, I think a lot of it comes down to people. To have a sustainable community, you want contributors that are regular, they're consistent, they're kind and compassionate to one another. They have aligned values, aligned goals. Now, we need to keep this going against the forces of corporate consumerism, because they've got all the money. They've got all the self-interest. They've got zero incentive to take part, at least until legally we can beat them with the hammer of liability. Computers take money. So yes, we've got, I want to talk about people challenges. There are money challenges too. But computers take money, and some of the jobs in open source, I think also probably deserve money. I do not want to be dealing with moderating certain kinds of content that you might see on social media. I have done that before in an email job for stuff that was legally and ethically awful, and the bleach will never leave my eyeballs, and I can't unsee it, and I don't wish that on anybody. But helpfully, I can discard all the money problems because the Llamacorn has come and said so. Very smart people are working on this exact problem, so I'm going to declare it out of scope. Because money won't matter if there is no people left. And money problems take a bit of time to kind of solve. Law always lags behind common use. We tend to legislate only after there's been a hideous problem. So the money problems, I am hoping, in an optimistic kind of way, that it will be solved by smart people who are very keen in solving this exact problem. But in the meantime, we've got to keep the people going. So the problems that I think that we've got going on at the moment, people are leaving, contributors are leaving. Sometimes it's because they've been doing this for 30 years, and quite frankly, being a volunteer of anything for 30 years is a lot. Maintaining something over 30 years is a lot. Dealing with security vulnerabilities is a lot. Dealing with suddenly something that's being used at scale is a lot when you thought it was a side hobby project. Being in open source as a maintainer for any length of time tends to induce burnout. You have high values and you're bearing all of the cost from all the users. And that's assuming that you've got helpful contributors. Chances are in any room of people, you will end up with some degree of disagreement. And if you're the primary maintainer, people kind of expect you to resolve all of that. So not only are you labouring for free, you're also doing all the emotional labour for free, and people hate you for it. So we're getting to a generational point where we're losing a heap of knowledge, either because people are like, I wish to retire, or because people are just tired and need to put down the weight that they're carrying. Well, we need new people coming in then, great. Well, they'll come into a community if the reputation is good and if they have free time to spare. Now, I don't know about you, but plenty of open source communities that I've heard about, the community has a terrible reputation. There are certain areas of open source that I will not touch. I don't read the comments on the internet anyway, but I definitely will not read it for these. But requiring that you have available free time also means that you tend to belong to a particular demographic, and it excludes a whole variety of people. And also, we're at a point where the cost of living is accelerating. I heard recently that by the end of the year it might cost us $9 to $12 for a cup of coffee. People are working harder than ever before and less able to make ends meet. And do you know what that means? Less free time. On top of that, open source is now being used at a scale where we've got new challenges that we are not really well equipped to handle. People who like writing code are generally not the people who like getting into the space of governance. They're not people who really want to go and deal with lawyers, although they do tend out to be very good at dealing with lawyers. And if you ever want to chuckle, Justin Warren's Freedom of Information quest is quite the epic journey. And then, as we've talked about, there is the uneven cost distribution. So I think we've got people leaving, and I don't think we're getting many new people coming in. If I look around the room, I feel like we've all got more grey hair and there's fewer fresh grads. Not in the way that we used to see 10 or 15 years ago, even though you might have been in the room 10 or 15 years ago and we all had less grey in our hair. If you want some more information about why people stay and why people leave, The Tide Lift survey is awesome. Robin Riley, who you may used to know as Josh, he works for them and has produced a lot of this information. So I come with receipts. All right, so we got sustainability challenges. What are we going to do? Helpfully, I have told you that HopePunk is about community and people, and I want to focus on the people challenges. And so this is a bit of a gimme slide. You wouldn't be here otherwise. So I think HopePunk gives us a chance to really kind of uniquely look at some of these challenges that we have around people and solve them in a way that makes people feel joy and optimism and kind and compassion. And do you know what? When I've got those qualities in the community, that's the kind of community I want to be in. And you know, this is why I'm here today. This is why Everything Open, I think, is HopePunk, because people are coming together with a vision of a great new future. But I want to come at it from the vision of HopePunk, because I can't just stand up here and go, you should be nice to one another and then we'll solve all of our people problems. That's not going to work. So what we want to do is use HopePunk and that bias for action to catalyse change. Sorry about the pun, I couldn't help myself. Enjoy. So how does this kind of tie in to the problems that I'm trying to solve? HopePunk is about community and connection. We're looking to sort of counteract the dehumanisation that occurs when we try to process humans at scale. I heard the other day about a popular location that is got an AI chatbot, and its job is to screen people asking for help, except that what it's not trying to do is help people who are looking for help. Its job is to protect the human customer service people from AI bots that are there to waste time, or humans that are just calling up to have a whinge. So now we've got computers that we're using to stop other computers and or to stop people from being mean to one another. This is what happens when you are trying to eke profit out and take people out of the picture. So we want to spend time with people who get us, kind of our found family in some way. And as our Welcome to Country said to us, connections have got meaning. Connection helps to build up psychological safety. So will I tell someone that they're being a jerk if I'm not feeling safe? Nope. I'm worried about the recriminations that might come my way. But if I'm feeling good and I know what the social standards are like, I will absolutely have no problem telling someone that they're a jerk. I will do it in a nice way, and I will show them how we like to behave, and then I will nicely invite them to leave if they don't behave, or I'll send them over to our safety committee person over there. But it's about those connections. And so if I'm connected to my community and I know what the community is about, then I can help the community be a better place. Community is about helping one another and sharing knowledge. It's about embracing diversity. It's about being driven by something other than profit. So how do we bring that together to build those connections, to build the community that can attract new people and help the old ones from not burning out? All of you people in the room who have got their multiple, libraries or products that is your labour of love, and you're really hoping nobody files a bug against it, because then you've got to fix it. Now, connections are most easily made to people who are local to us. I will absolutely commit a certain category of crime if it will keep my family safe. I will absolutely not commit any kind of crime if it's going to keep someone safe in another country who I've never met and know nothing about. I am connected to my local community. But we live in an online world, so what does local mean? Well, it means that the people that we interact with online. So whether that's you're in the conference matrix chat right now, interacting with people on the social media, or you're down at your local library and you've got groups there, or your scout group, or your sport, it's people that we are got a two-way connection. Connection is not one-way, connection is two-way. And as our Aboriginal host informed us, that when you welcome someone into your space, They are welcoming you to form that connection, because the connection is how you become part of that community, and you take those things on, and those connections have meaning. I don't know any of the moderators on Facebook. Maybe that's because they don't exist anymore, I'm not really sure. Do I know who the admins are of my local Mastodon instance that I'm on? Yes. Do I see them talking? Yes. Do I see them talking with my friends? Yes. Who am I likely to donate to? Facebook or my local Mastodon instance, moderators and hosts? The local connection matters. So when you're thinking about your community, when you're thinking about how do you appeal to new people, when you're thinking about how do you get your users to give back, you've got to think about how you can connect with them. What are the things that matter to you both? And how can you build that connection? HopePunk is about weaponised optimism. Robodet went on for many years, and it is definitely a story about stories. The only reason it didn't get traction initially was because everybody in a certain demographic said, "Oh, those dull-blooders, there's all this talk about not being able to repay their debt." Well, they shouldn't have been given the money in the first place. Until the stories started coming out about why people ended up in that situation. We want to have compassion for ourselves and others, and we want to get into this kind of collective action thing. Get rid of the guilt and the cynicism. I can go on Facebook because it is the way that I connect to friends and family. I can still say Facebook is a terrible place and I don't like being in there and I wish it was different, and I will not feel guilty about being on Facebook because it is the only thing that I've got right now, but I will definitely advocate for it to be better, and also sprinkles. HopePunk is not a magic fix. It takes time to change a community. It takes time to solve the problems that we have right now, and by the time we've solved them, I'm sure new ones will come up. But does it mean that we produce an ecology of people who you want to be around, you want to be part of, that you want to see continue to the next generation and the one beyond that? Yes. So I think HopePunk is the heart of everything open. I think we are on a pivot point, and I think that we all agree that the things that are open, knowledge, systems, code, libraries, the stuff that people create should be a publicly owned common pool resource. And I think HopePunk has a huge area to play here in terms of building those connections. But just in closing, I want to say, you can apply this in other areas. It doesn't really just apply to open source. The same values that you enjoy when you come to this conference, the same things that you do when you're like, "Oh my gosh, this chap over here, he is building cool 3D things smaller than the human hair. I've already texted my kids about it." Like, that is super cool. We should get out there and enjoy that and do things in the real world, not just as an intellectual exercise. So what do you like to do? And if you are interested in starting up some sort of local HopePunk thing or finding out more about the plastics, let me know if you're interested in a BOF. For me, my act of HopePunk is this. It's coming up here, standing in front of everybody else and telling them about HopePunk, because if I am up here and I inspire 5 of you, and you inspire 5 people, and you inspire 5, you can see that hopefully, collectively, we're going to build a better world. So I really thank you for your time. We might have 2 minutes left for questions, but I'm around so you can come and talk to me. Thank you, everybody.
Questions? Hands up. No, you'll just be swamped after the talk, I think.
So filled with joy. And
they're so amped.
Sorry, say that again? Hindley Street as you head towards Rundle Mall. You've got to go past the dumpling place and Guzman y Gomez and the fried chicken place.
Thank you, Nicola. I'm filled with hope and fairly punky, although like you, not necessarily into the music part of it, but I think the line that the weaponised optimism, I think a few might say, yeah, I accused Donna of that. The question is, in coming to Everything Open and sharing HopePunk, what is the bit you really want to see happen? What do you want to catalyse today?
I would love it if in the open source communities that you already participate in, or open hardware or whatever it is, if you can get together with the people who are the core in your community and talk about how do we make this sustainable. People talk about succession planning, and it's especially hard in open source communities. Vicky Brasseur has actually written 1 or possibly 2 books about this very topic. And you don't want to be maintaining this forever. You don't want to be contributing to this forever. How do you get the new blood in? How do you keep what you've got right now to be not toxic? How do you make it still be a joy? And I don't think we have those conversations. We assume that just by filing bug reports or patch fixes or attending the occasional video conference or whatever, that's going to be enough. And it's in the way that we sort of elevate code contributions above other contributions. So if you're going away and you're thinking about how do we as a community like to function, what is the behaviour we want to see, how do we make it easy for people to participate, just even having those conversations and thinking about why you're participating, what is it about this that brings you joy, or if it no longer brings you joy, what you can do to fix that. Like, that would make my weird little heart really happy. Sorry, microphone.
We got one more.
Studying the history of punk music, quite a few musicians, one of the examples would be Ramones, towards the end of their lives became very conservative, a very conservative view, turning the punk upside down. And obviously a lot of sci-fi authors also noticed that as people get older, we're all getting not all and not very, but we're getting more conservative and more. So what's your advice on actually trying to keep that spark, passing it on either to a new generation or new people?
Asking for advice at no notice on something fundamental like how do you stop old people becoming old and crotchety when I am in fact also an old person. I was talking with Alec Clues at lunch, and it's been biologically shown that as we get older, as humans get older, there is a biological change that happens in our brain that makes us less able to deal with change. And this is why you've got the stereotype of the grumpy old man, because we can't absorb the new stuff as well as we used to, and we're not aware of this. So when we're working in a world that we expect to be the way that we can remember it, and everything is moved, it makes you cranky. So in terms of how do you help people do this kind of thing, this is why I'm like, start these conversations early about what does the community want? What are we here for? How do we get this knowledge out of your head and pass it on? Because you are great, you're an awesome maintainer, fantastic, you know everything there is to know about it. Wouldn't it be great if there was 5 of you? Do you know how we can get 5 of you being awesome? You've got to share your knowledge with 4 other people. And then they can actually do all the work that you maybe don't even want to do anymore because, running tests on 6 different architectures is really boring. So I think it's appealing to people in terms of you are here for open source because you want to produce stuff that lots of people use. If you want that stuff to live on, for your legacy to live on, you're going to start sharing that. Like, share your knowledge, not just the code.
Yep, over this way, yeah. Keep looking here, yes. Hello. So, yeah, I'm a big fan of HopePunk and how that, and how that ties to open source and bringing joy to, our tech and our work in the community. I'm sort of drawing back on something from the keynote where they were sort of talking about open source, and there was a lot about the licensing and less about the culture. And how do we navigate, I suppose, harm in our communities? It's part of the burnout, part of, he mentioned especially women in tech. So I've seen there's, more emphasis on code of conducts. But yeah, that's really my big question is like, sure, more hope, but yeah, how do we navigate the the harm, less harm. Yeah.
Yes, I mean, creating a safe community online, I think, is going to be a never-ending problem. And there is a lot of he says, she says, and a lot of entitlement that takes place, and a lot of people who feel that it's okay to be mean or dismissive of someone else just because they're not standing in front of them. You know, and nobody's ever interpreted things when it's, you know, in text on the internet. So, you know, you can end up with these kind of complications that come about just because the medium in which we operate is making things harder for us. And because we are mentally wired to fill in the blanks where we don't have the information. Well, yes, you know, I could be taking this message one way, or maybe there's 3 other ways, but I'm going to choose to pick the way that is sending me the biggest signal, and that is, this person hates me. But in the way that in the face-to-face world, we solve this problem with laws and things that hold people to account, which is where code of conduct comes in. It means nothing if it's not enforced. And so this is where the talking to people comes together to say, all right, well, we've got this code of conduct. Is it still fit for purpose? What does our community stand for? How do we recognise bad activity when it takes place? It might not be captured by the letter of the code of conduct, but what do we do when that sort of situation comes up? How do people tell someone else that they're being a jerk so that the cost isn't borne just by the people who are there to enforce the code of conduct, that in fact the entire community is using HopePunk to kind of give the community an immune system against the behaviour you don't want to see. Now it's hard, we're a volunteer organisation, you can't fire volunteers, but I think it's a very tricky problem that is difficult to solve in a universal manner. Sorry. I think I'm being
Fred,
wound up.
Yes, I'm going to have to stop this so we can all get something to eat and drink. If we could have one last round of applause, please.